What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at the Spyderco Clipitool. And this is a version with the scissors, although there are other tools available on other versions as well. You can see even the scissors have that classic Spidey hole, which I thought was super cute. But I got this one during the most recent second sale that Spyderco did, and I only paid $16 for it during that sale. You can tell it's a second because it has that notch right here behind the hole. And so only paid $16 for it, which definitely feels like a steal for this knife. Regular price is $42, and I'll link to where you can find it down in the description of the video. Now at $42, I'm not sure I would have bought this, to be honest. And so there's probably a sweet spot between that $16 price point that I said was a steal and the $42 price point, probably $25 to $30, where I think this is still definitely worth it if you can find it at that price point. Now I think this one's a really great alternative to the Victorinox Classic SD, which I realize is a little bit sacrilegious to say. I'm sure there's some Victorinox fans that are throwing up in their mouth a little bit, but I do think this has a couple clear advantages over the Classic SD. Many disadvantages as well, so it's really going to be down to what you prioritize. But with that said, we might as well compare the two. And so here I have a Classic SD. Did a scale swap on this one for the Topo titanium scales from Countycom. That does still maintain the toothpick and tweezers as well, but just kind of wanted to have similar finishes here to compare, although our Spyderco is actually stainless steel, not titanium, so want to make that clear as well. Now if you see these side by side, you can see that the Clipitool is bigger in almost every facet. It's longer at about 2.57 inches in this closed positioning. It's wider, the blade sticks out further with that Spidey hole. It's thicker, also weighs a little bit more at 1.9 ounces. So all of those are clear advantages for the Victorinox. Another clear advantage is the keychain attachment. So with our Victorinox, we have a classic key ring. With the Spyderco, we have a lanyard hole that you can thread one of those ball chains through to attach it to your keychain. Not quite as eloquent, in my opinion, as the Victorinox. And so one advantage that the Spyderco has, though, is that pocket clip. So you can obviously buy the dangler pocket clip or even an aftermarket pocket clip to attach to these, but the Spyderco comes with it, and it is a really great pocket clip. This preferred carry is in my fifth pocket, and this slides over my jeans really easy, keeps it in place, and just really easy to mount on there, which is great because they're small enough where if this is the only thing in that pocket, they do tend to get lost in there and you have to dig for them. Also great because this stainless steel material is very scratchable. You can see plenty of scratches on there already, and this one's usually mounted in that fifth pocket, not rubbing up against anything. I do have a bird knife with their stainless steel handles as well, and that one goes in the same pocket as my keys, and the handle is just completely chewed up. It scratches a ton, so definitely something to be aware of if that's something that bothers you. Now, there's a lot of advantages here with the Classic SD, and one more is going to be the tool set. You get a more robust tool set. Obviously you have your blade and the scissors just like on our Clipitool, but you also get the file with the small flathead screwdriver. If you don't get the ALOX version, you get the tweezers and the toothpick, and so a lot more tools than you actually get out of the Spyderco. But where the Spyderco clearly has the advantage is the tools themselves are significantly more robust, and they just feel like primary options. Even though they're small, they definitely feel like you can get some work done with them, where the Victorinox, they're kind of a last ditch thing. It's nice to have the scissors. The blade is kind of a tertiary blade in most cases for me, but if we open this blade up, you can see that it's a decent bit longer. We get a 2-inch blade, 8CR13 MOV, nice flat grind on there. It's significantly thicker than the blade on our Victorinox, and I think just a better overall shape than the pen blade we get with the Victorinox. This one has that kind of classic leaf shape, Spyderco shape to the blade. And so let's open up our blade on the Victorinox and we can look at the two side by side, and you can see it is a crazy difference, about a 1/2 inch in length or in cutting edge, but just a much thicker blade, a much larger blade, and one that feels like you can get a lot more work done. Another clear advantage, the Victorinox, it's a slip joint. It's a pretty light spring on here, so it's pretty easy to break that into the closing position. When we take a look at the Spyderco, it's a much more robust spring. So neither of these have a half stop, but this one's going to require significantly more energy to get that one to close on you than the Victorinox. Now, not something that's super concerning because usually when you're cutting, you're putting pressure on the blade, which is pushing it into that open position. So as long as you're using it correctly, neither one is going to close on you, but this one just inspires a lot more confidence in terms of use, the thickness of it, the length of it, and the sturdiness heaviness of that back spring. And so feels almost like you can use this as a primary knife. I think it's still kind of a secondary, tertiary situation for me, but I would have a lot more confidence using it. I rarely ever use the blade on the Classic SD unless it's something where I'm like cutting food and my main blade is dirty or something like that. I may reach for it, but for the most part, I avoid it, and I'm using it for the scissors and the screwdriver and things like that. And so speaking of the scissors, this is one area that really surprised me with the Clipitool, is that I actually like these scissors a little bit more than the Victorinox scissors, and I love the Victorinox scissors, so that's a surprise. A lot of times, really, any other brand of multi-tools, when I get the scissors, it can be a little bit disappointing in kind of comparison to the Victorinox scissors. The Victorinox scissors on the SD are quite small, but they're effective and they just work really well. And so I always like having scissors, even though I carry knives. Sometimes you need scissors, and so I like having some sort of tool with scissors, and the Classic SD is the smallest one that I usually go with. And so when we take a look at these scissors side by side, the cutting edge isn't that much of a difference. I know it's hard to see on my background, but the cutting edge isn't significantly different. It is larger on the Spyderco, but one area where it makes a big difference is the handle portion. And so if we take a look at those two side by side, the handle is longer on our Spyderco, and it also has a little bit more of a curve and shape to it that leads to just a more ergonomic cut. For a quick single cut, really doesn't make a difference, but if you're trying to do those longer cuts, it does feel better on the Spyderco. Another really nice thing is that they do not tear or rip at the paper. It is a super clean cut. As you can see, we have this ultra clean cut, no tearing whatsoever on it, and so very similar to what we get out of the Victorinox. That's not a clear advantage, but when you're making these longer cuts and you're extending them out, this one just feels a lot more natural because of the extension of that handle. And so overall, I do prefer the tools on here, even though there's not quite as many as what we get on our Classic SD. And so I think it's a cool alternative. Obviously not a replacement. If you love your Classic SD, stick with it. I don't think the scissors are that much of an upgrade where it's worth upgrading for the price point if this isn't on sale. If the blade is a bigger concern, I do think it is worth upgrading for the blade if you can get it at the right price. Now, best of both worlds, there are people doing customs where they're blade swapping, I think the Dragonfly blade, into other Victorinox tools. And so I think that's probably kind of the best option. Obviously going to end up costing a lot more than either of these options though. And so if you don't want to spend a lot, this Spyderco Clipitool is a really cool option, and it is available with other tools as well. Would love to hear your thoughts on this one down in the comments below. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or checking out some of my other content. It all helps the channel out a ton, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.